Grand Rising and good morning to all of you. Happy Monday, folks. Welcome to the Morning Update Show. I am your co-host, Trey Holiday. And you know what? The sun is peeking over here a little bit for us, making me real happy. Got to bring my guy, Big O, into this so that we can get this show on the road for you. What's up, Big O? Happy Monday.
Happy Monday, Trey Holiday.
Hey.
It's good, man. I see you in here popping as usual.
Hey, you know, colors, man. It's all about the colors.
Yeah. Want to say hello and good morning to everybody, our viewing audience out there, and remind you this is a great time right now to tag and share the stream. Share the stream with someone you know that can appreciate culturally relevant news and information emanating from right here in the Emerald City. And Trey Holiday, before we go any further, of course, last month was Black History Month, and the month of March, National Women's Month.
That's right. Hey, tip that hat. You know what? I'm excited because I know that we're going to be continuing this theme throughout the month, making sure that we do give recognition in National Women's Month. You know, folks are getting used to it too. It's like settling on folks. Now they know March is that month, man. Let's give it up to the women.
You know, I don't have any problem with that. The majority of our viewers here on the Morning Update Show are identify as female anyway. Mm-hmm. So, yeah. This is what it is. But yeah, we've got the guests loaded this month. And speaking of guests, today we have Naomi Ishisaka talking to us live. Tomorrow we have Hamdi Muhammad, who's running for Port Commission, position number 3. And we've got a few other guests throughout the week as well. So in March, this is National Women's Month, and we're going to show up and show out. I want to dive right into it. You know, big news for us. For not even just for the Central District, but I think a lot of people in Metro League, you know, because over the years, people remember Two Brick Rick because he showed up at every gym, anywhere Garfield was at, Two Brick Rick was there. You know what I'm saying? We lost Rick the other day, and it's been a big loss to our community, the Garfield community and the larger community in Central District. But even beyond that, you have people from other schools who are talking about, man, they remember Rick and his legacy. Well, last night I had the Factors here, the twins, Ronald and Ronell Moore, and they were actually recording a segment for their show, The Factors, which is on our Converge Music platform. But I thought that they spoke to Rick and how people felt about Rick so well. I wanted to make sure and include that in the show this morning.
We also want to show love to, you know, a respected person in our community. Oh, yeah. If you know, you know. That's what these kids are saying nowadays. And if you went to Garfield, if you grew up in a CD, even if you didn't, you should know who Rick is.
Rick is, man. Legendary Rick.
Legendary Bulldog, man. The biggest Bulldog on them all, man.
Two Brick Rick.
And he was a person that walked around Garfield with such nostalgia because he's been around so long. If you know Rick, he's been there for not only my generation, but my parents' generation.
Decades.
And so a backstory of Rick is a person who is born in the 50s. And he was born kind of with a mental illness, and it's kind of something that people kind of shunned him for. And so he had found a home here in Washington State in Seattle. And Rick basically became as he got older, an extra teacher, extra authority figure in Garfield community hallways and, you know, around the CD. He would walk around and help teachers out. He would help the principal out. He would help students out. This became a thing through decades. This became a kind of a fixture. You expected Rick to be at Garfield. You expected Rick to be
dances, games,
to be at games, to be on field trips. You expected Rick to come in and do a date in your classroom
on the board. He pop in class.
He don't care who's teaching or where they're at.
Substitutes be like, man, chill out. That's Rick.
So Rick is someone that you will see and you will feel sorry for. And I'm gonna be the first to tell you that is someone that you should not feel sorry for at all. Rick is someone who was a man of substance.
He lived his life.
He was a real friend. He was caring. He was free. Rick set a standard of how you carry yourself in the community, no matter what you're going through or who you are. He was respected heavily. There's not a person that can sit and say that they have anything bad to say about Rick.
From any point in life, I don't care if you're a principal, a firefighter, you go on the streets, you are homeless, you are a nurse.
I don't give a damn what you was doing.
You loved Rick, you respected him. He was a sweet dude, kind, never any harsh words, always good words, always good vibes, always have fun.
He moved so much and so freely and so gracefully that you didn't think anything was ever wrong with Rick. he was so smart, you didn't think he had a learning disability.
Yeah.
Rick definitely gave life to any room and situation that he entered. And that's within any part of the school, any part of the CD. If you seen Rick around, you either helping him or you're gonna leave him alone. He's a blessed and a protected individual, not just, in this lifetime, but in next. He's a legend.
So there you go right there. When you talk about Rick, it's funny because we're watching the video and we're sharing these memories of Rick, especially when we talk about Rick used to just show up. Trey Simmons talked about how Rick used to be on the basketball bus. And, I think we're going to have to take some time, not today, but share these stories because Rick was part and parcel of the greatest basketball program in the history of the state of Washington, the Garfield Bulldogs. And, being a small kid, they're in the gym and watching the Bulldogs. This back in the day, Chris Ferguson and Kelly Jefferson and this and that. And Rick would be out there with Al Harrison, the greatest high school basketball coach ever in the history of the state of Washington, the Bulldogs. So as a little kid, today you would consider Rick special needs. They called it different names over the decades. But you saw Rick, this special needs guy out there. He's out there with Coach Al Harrison. He's out there with Kelly Jefferson, with Chris Ferguson. Man, it was like, Rick was such a legend.
Man, and his energy so massive. I mean, when we talk about, I think you're absolutely right. Oh, we're going to have to give that way more time than we have today because, we all have these amazing stories about Rick. And honestly, I love what the twin said there. Like, not somebody to ever feel sorry for. He was so full of love and genuosity. I mean, he showed it every day. And so I'm excited. Me and will have to pull something together. You're right, we got to do that.
Exactly. All right, moving along here from the Seattle Times. David Gutman, Seattle to open more permanent vaccination sites in Rainier Beach, West Seattle, and Lumen Field Event Center. And so, these are permanent vaccination sites that are opening up. I believe the mayor is out there at 12 o'clock. The mayor, Chief Scoggins, I think Executive Constantine, they're out there. So it's Rainier Beach out there at SWAC in West Seattle and at Lumen Field. And this is vaccination. You can't just show up and get vaccinated. You need an appointment here. It said at West Seattle and Rainier Beach sites, appointments will initially be available only through referral, with no publicly available registration or walk-ins. The two sites will at first be distributing about 1,000 doses each week, but will ultimately have the capacity to distribute 1,000 doses a day, according to the city. So there you go. You know what I'm saying? I mean, it's all kinds of whatever in our city, but around this COVID issue, these guys are proactive. So a vaccination site right there in South Seattle and West Seattle and at Lumen Field.
Yeah, there we go. I mean, this is, what we're hearing. More and more information is coming out as people are getting these vaccine clinics together, working again alongside community. Make sure people are showing up. And right now, it really is about those who really need that vaccine. So that first phase, make sure our elders, those who need it, are getting this information out. I'm glad to see this happening, though.
All right. And keeping it in Rainier Beach, keeping that same energy. Here's a clip from King 5 last night. Talked about what community passageways program there last night. They were cleaning up around the Safeway.
Yeah, Jessica, good evening. This is all part of a larger plan to make that area safe for everyone in the Rainier Beach neighborhood. And organizers also want to send a message that the community is taking that space back.
Many hands make light work.
We will rise, we will rise.
And many hearts can turn a vision into reality.
And we just wanted to show that our community, that we care and that we're here for them.
Seattle nonprofit Community Passageways, Safeway, and the Black Equality Committee at a local UPS branch pitched in to clean up the parking lot at the Rainier Beach Safeway. Have fun and flip the script on the reputation others have given the area.
We wanted to let them know that there's more than violence that goes on in this community.
The parking lot has long been associated with crime and traumas in the community, including the shooting deaths of 2 men this summer. This work and this joy is meant to spark even more events like it and more partnerships between businesses and community members.
We want to keep collaborating, so we want this to become contagious.
Because the more people show up, the more community can thrive.
We want to make you feel okay being in your space, in your community. We're here and we want you to come and join us.
Andrea tells me that they're going to plan more events just like this, not only at the Safeway parking lot in Rainier Beach, but also all around Seattle and even around King County. And if you're interested in pitching in and helping out, just visit communitypassageways.org. Live in Seattle tonight, Vanessa Mishania, King 5 News.
Man, I just love seeing our community come together like that. Great job to Community Passageways and everybody who puts their time and energy into events like this. It's so important that that positive energy be uplifted. So I love what she said there, that this is not just a place of violence. We're going to show you how we get down. You know, community did show up and show out. Great job, guys.
You know, so this weekend, Willard Jemison Jr. Show Good Game Alert, which is going on 2 years old now, where it's a show about tools to disrupt gun violence in Seattle. And that's one of the things that's been important for us, for Converge Media, well before the protests, well before a lot of you guys probably even heard about Converge. We were producing programming to be able to talk to young people about, man, how do we get away from this other pandemic, which is the gun violence pandemic in our community. And Derek Wheeler Smith of Zero Youth Detention, he said something real interesting. Forgive me on the audio here, it's a connection. But he was like, man, we always talk about Black people being crabs in a bucket. Has anybody stopped to think about a bucket isn't a crab's natural habitat?
I think we're just grappling with this notion and this idea of how do we shift some of our thinking? How do we move away from and broaden the conversation around things like even data, where we tend to only want to look at qualitative data, right? Or quantitative data, and we only want to look at the numbers. And that's like just looking at the forest. And sometimes we can't see the trees for the forest. So we got to be able to look at the qualitative data. What's the quality of the stories, right? Of the people who are in community. And bigger than that, how are we looking at historical data? A lot of times we don't like to talk about historical data, and we have tons of amnesia about how we got here. And if we don't bring historical data into the conversation, then we're left with a deep sense of victim blaming. And what that leads us to do then is to only address these symptoms, because something in our mental model says, well, these people are predisposed to violence, right? So why should we waste our time trying to solve for these kinds of challenges in their communities? These folks have a crab in a bucket mentality. And that kind of analysis stops us from moving into really going, man, hold on, wait a minute. Crabs don't grow up in buckets. So maybe the behavior of a crab in a bucket is in relationship to the fact that the crab is not in its natural habitat, right? And ghettos and barrios and places of poverty are not the natural habitat of Black and brown folks. Those are social constructs of the government, right? And so how do we then begin to look at the state-sanctioned and the government violence that's been inflicted on Black and brown neighborhoods? And as a result of that, how do we organize the system in such a way that it spends more time looking in the mirror than it does out the window? And recognizes that it has to begin to show up differently. We got to begin to look at capital alignment and how resources are being leveraged. We got to begin to look at community-based alternatives and community-based solutions from people in community who are incredibly brilliant, right? and have the answers. And oftentimes, I think the gap that's missing are the resources, right, to be able to do that and to be able to do that over time.
Oh man, you know, Derek is so right there. And shout out to another one of my Bulldog grads, Bookie Gates. You know what I'm saying? He was there at the Bulldog house. Look, that's why you heard me. Yeah, you heard me give it to the Bulldog there. But no, you know what? I love seeing, you know, Willard bring those guys on. And honestly, what Derek is talking about is just spot on. We do need to look at things from a different perspective. And I think that's why having so many voices involved in these processes is so key, Omar. I really do.
It is, and Good Game Alert, man. We brought it back, and you know, if you really know Willard, then you know he's faced some challenges. The last few months, and the fact that you know it's really like the phoenix rising from the ashes. We'll welcome him back on air here at Converge and Good Game Alert. You can catch the last episode of Good Game Alert across all of our, well, at least of our Facebook and YouTube platforms right now. We'll put it up on our Instagram as well. Hey, we talked about Brent Jones getting the job, getting that big check for interim superintendent. We said we'd follow up on it. I talked to Seattle School Board Director Brandon Hersey. He's the director for District 7, and asked him why was we had to put some respect on it, Dr. Brent Jones the right choice for interim superintendent?
Brent Jones is the best person for this job for a number of reasons. But some of the things that were at the top of my mind during this decision-making process and why I'm really excited that we were able to negotiate a contract with Dr. Jones is that Brent is coming with a lot of respect and rapport amongst community and district staff and government leaders. For those of you who might not know, Dr. Jones previously served as our chief of HR here in Seattle Public Schools. And he has had the ability and the time to work with many of our senior staff that are here now. But even more importantly, as we are heading into reopening our physical school buildings, we really are going to be facing many, many challenges. And we need a leader who is going to be able to unite us across the city. Right. So when I say us, I mean, we need a leader who's going to be able to bring SEA, the district, the board, PASS, which is the principals union, and all of the other sectors that interact with our education system together so that we can, it just feels so often that we're in some sort of like contentious relationship or some sort of fight. Every time I pull up my news, it's always some new thing that, Seattle Public Schools has dropped the ball on. And what we really need as we are moving forward and these challenges are going to become even greater, we're going to need a leader who's got some knowledge behind him, specifically in the system like here in Seattle, but who has also had a lot of experience working with the senior staff and the different, sectors that are involved with education as it is. Another really important part of this is that he's local. You know what I'm saying? We are going to need a person who understands Seattle because this is such a unique environment and who's not only got a good name behind them in terms of working, but also leading in an area where there are lots of competing interests. So those are just a few of the reasons I'm really excited about Dr. Jones, and I'm sure he would love to find some time to connect with you and talk with y'all just to give you a little bit of more information about his vision for the district as well.
Man, I mean, I love being able to follow up with Brandon Hersey every time. I mean, he is bringing the points to bear. I mean, here we have in Dr. Jones, we have a man who is connected to community, connected to the sectors at that Seattle public school level that need to be, and also bringing in that expertise. Man, that's what the district needs right now. I'm so glad that we're going to be able to learn more about Dr. Jones and his connections. It's really important.
And one thing I'll say is this, although Director Hersey, he was not elected, he was appointed for a position because he filled a vacancy, that it is still an elected position. He's one of the elected officials that represents our community, who every time we call, he answers and he's willing to come and talk. So yeah, we'll follow up with Dr. Jones. So now I want to bring up something here. And with the Rewind with Besa, it was great this weekend at 2 p.m. on Saturday. And they talked about award shows and inequity award shows and this, that, everything else. It isn't too often that clips from the Rewind with Besa actually make it into the morning update show, especially on a Monday. But Besa said something that was real interesting in regards to protect Black women. And this is National Women's Month and everything else. And Besa was talking about how Megan Thee Stallion did a photo shoot all natural, no makeup or whatever. And the backlash that was out there. And she posed the question, is protect Black women a phrase that's only skin deep?
So you're saying protect Black women, but then you're saying that she looks like a man in these photos. I think she looks quite great. I think she looks very natural. And here's another thing that I think, and I think some people might not agree with it, but that's fine. That's why this is called the Rewind with Besa. I feel like some of you guys are just not used to seeing natural women anymore. I feel like there is so much Kim Kardashian, filtered this, filtered that, plastic surgery this, plastic surgery that, and I don't see anything wrong with it because once I get the bag, I'm gonna get lipo on my stomach. So I see nothing wrong with plastic surgery. I see nothing wrong with makeup. Obviously, I'm wearing some makeup right now. But my point is, I feel like when you have women come out and they don't want to wear weave, you're like, oh my God, her hair looks flat, wimpy, it looks greasy, it's too short, it's nappy, it's this. They might want to not wear makeup. Oh, she has spots on her face. Why does she look like this? And it's like, bro, we have hyperpigmentation. Are you crazy? Oh, why does she have freckles? Like, I just find it so interesting that we want to say protect Black women, but when Black women finally strip down the way that y'all stay telling us to do, you say we look like men. So it's like, what do you really want? Like, what are we supposed to do? How do we win? Do we win? Probably don't. Y'all know I don't have the answers to everything. I just go on a rant from time to time.
This is, wow. Besa, snaps to you, because I think that, this is, again, another one of those issues. And I love that it's brought up right now, that we can recap it today at the first day of National Women's Month, because honestly, it is so true, particularly when we're talking about celebrities. And I think that it's something that is so evident in the way that so many people absorb that kind of want and desire for celebrityism, even in their own lived experience. We need more photo shoots like what Megan Thee Stallion did. I mean, literally, we need to be able to showcase all of these amazing women in their beauty, in their natural beauty. And one of the things that I think is so poignant about what Besa said is that we live in a world where you are able to transform your body, your face, do whatever you want in a way that things are so much more accessible nowadays. I mean, they have a lot of different ways. And she even said there, she sees herself as wanting to get some stomach surgery when she gets that money right? But ultimately, I think that it's so clear that we need more of these kind of discussions. We need to be able to showcase to younger women how important it is that when they're growing up as kids, that they don't have to conform to these ideas of what, mainstream beauty even is. At the end of the day, it's up to us to define what that really means and for us to be able to change that. I think Besa is 100% right on this one.
All right. Well, it's National Women's Month, and as you and Besa, I disagree with everybody. We don't want that smoke. Man, one more thing here before we get out of here. We're going to take a short break, and we're coming back with Naomi Ishizaki. Man, I always tell you guys, we follow up, especially around these tragic events here in the city. Today was March 1st, and marked a new month. I reached out to the Seattle Police Department this morning to see if they had an update on Antonio Mays Jr., the young man, the 16-year-old runaway from California who was murdered in the chop. Seattle Police Department responded back to me right away and said that there's no update on Antonio Mays Jr. We're going to continue, though, to ask. This is not going nowhere. And then also, wanted to point this out here. This was last week, but a medical examiner identifies man fatally shot by Seattle police near downtown Waterfront last week. And his name was Derek Hayden, right? And, I bring this up because, you know what, in our fair city, the Emerald City, we're a city that's driven by headlines and news cycles. So, of course, when we all saw that horrible body camera footage, I mean, that was I've seen a lot of body cam footage. That was just horrible of what happened there on the waterfront. But, we didn't want to leave it where it was. And his name was Derek Hayden, 44 years old. He was also a student at Seattle University in the College of Science and Engineering, and he was studying to get a certificate for computer science. And so just wanted to be able to put a bookend on that, because I know a lot of people make a lot of noise when you see the video come out, you see everything else, and then they go quiet and they forget about the victims and they forget about the people who, in this case, it was just horrible. But all I'm saying is that we're not forgetting here. His name was Derek Hayden. And yeah, he was a student there at Seattle University, 44 years old, and wanted to be able to bring that information to our viewers, because so many people make a lot of noise and probably even forgot to figure out what his name was.
Man, you're so right. Oh, and that's another reason why, even when we have to cover these stories that are heartbreaking, it's important to have that follow through, because ultimately we understand. And again, this is, no fault of major media. It just is the way that it is in that business. It's unfortunate because they're always looking for the next headline. They don't always have the time to do these follow-up stories. I'm so glad that Converge is different, man.
Yeah. And also, I want to put that out there as well, because there's a lot of community organizations that made a lot of noise when the tape came out like they should have, but now they've gone quiet. You know what I'm saying? And so, by the way, I'll let you know, you can continue to push these efforts. And, you know, other people might have forgotten, but we haven't. We're going to take a short break right now, and I'm hoping that my fellow Bulldog forgives me for keeping her waiting in the green room. When we come back from the break, we have Naomi Ishisaka. You are watching the Morning Update Show.
I did it for the city, I did it for the love, I did it for the people, I did it for us.
Back on this rap ish, I ain't even broke a sweat, homie, this practice. Pondering my next move, staring at my track list, hope I ain't missing my window. Praying like a Baptist, Seattle's own, tired of this Game of Thrones. They made a list of the best rappers and guess who wasn't on? While the disrespect continues, I'm steady packing these venues.
Converge Media produces culturally relevant content for Black and urban audiences. Our coverage is raw, transparent, and objective, praised by community leaders, government officials, and residents. Support Converge Media today via Venmo, Cash App, or PayPal at Converge Media.
All right, welcome back to the Morning Update Show. Director Alia D'Alessandro pointed this out. She said, "Oh, you didn't play your motion graphic." And I take time making these, so I'm playing this, okay? there goes my motion graphic right there. Alia D'Alessandro, please bring in Naomi Ishisaka. Good morning. Whoa.
Morning, Amari. How are you? Trey?
Can we get some elbow room over here? There we go.
There it is.
Hey, good morning. How are you?
Good. How are you both?
Hi, good. Good to have you here, Naomi.
Thanks so much. I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, and thank you for your patience. We went a little bit long this morning. We try to keep it on time. Some real important topics this morning. And we're talking about Rick. You know what I'm saying? The fellow Bulldog, you know, man, the legacy of Rick.
Yeah, that's been all over all of my social media in the last few days. So it's beautiful to see those tributes coming out.
Right. And so now we brought you on here this morning. You wrote an article. Is that the proper, is it an article or is it an opinion or is it editorial? What's the proper phrase?
A column. It's an opinionated article. Yeah.
Opinionated article. It's a column. Let me put this up here. Attacks on Asian Americans demand new solutions. Why don't you go ahead, we can hear over the graphic. Why don't you go ahead and tell us about this column that you wrote?
Yeah, as a lot of folks probably have heard, there's been this series of attacks on Asian American elders in particular across the country, New York, the Bay Area, and it's really shaken people to the core. I mean, as every community, as in every community, you know, Asian Americans hold elders in incredibly high regard, and it's our, you know, number one responsibility as younger folks to protect our elders and protect our children. And so to see these kinds of attacks happening has been, you know, just gutting and heartbreaking to watch. But I think that, you know, what I was trying to say in my column last week was that, you know, as much as those things make us want to seek vengeance and seek revenge, you know, on behalf of our elders, I think that, you know, we need to take a much more cautious approach to how we respond to this and not just jump to conclusions about the motivations behind these attacks.
And what do you mean by that when you're talking about approach? Because, you know, I mean, most people, of course, what we talk about is a law enforcement, like, hey, you know what, we need to go the traditional approach. So what approach are you proposing?
Yeah, I mean, I really tried to tie it back to the racial justice movement that started, well, has been ongoing for years, but really came to a head last summer, as you know more than anyone, and really talk about, you know, we talk about re-envisioning public safety, you know, and we talk about how we're going to, you know, change the police or system of policing, try to think about ways beyond mass incarceration to deal with complex and entrenched social problems. But when push comes to shove and we have a situation like this where everyone's just, you know, just in horror, looking at horror at these incidents, the first thing we think of is we need to make sure these people get locked up and never see the light of day. And that instinct is natural. I think that instinct is very understandable. But at the same time, like if we are going to re-envision public safety, we need to be a lot more circumspect about how we go about it. So, for example, in the case of the Bay Area attacks, there was no evidence that's come out so far to indicate that these were motivated by anti-Asian bias. The two people who've been arrested so far were both African American, and according to their lawyers, this was not motivated by anti-Asian hate or any kind of bias, even though they've been widely reported as anti-Asian hate crimes. And I think we need to be really thoughtful. You mentioned the shooting on the waterfront. By all accounts, the people that were arrested in these cases had been dealing with longstanding mental health issues and mental health conditions, and had been, in and out of care for those issues. And so to sort of, paint everything with this really broad brush, I think does a disservice to what the real underlying issues are. And in those cases, it appears the underlying issues are, untreated mental health issues. So I think that we need to focus on the root causes and not just, sort of reactively respond in the way that we've been most, conditioned to know how. And I think that's really our test and our challenge. I can't hear you, Triana, sorry.
For the city, I did it for the love, I did it for the people, I did it for us.
Back on this rap ish, I ain't even broke a sweat, homie, this practice. Pondering my next move, staring at my track list, hope I ain't miss my window. Praying like a Baptist, Seattle's own, tired of this Game of Thrones. They made a list of the best rappers and guess who wasn't on? While the disrespect continues, I'm steady packing these venues.
Converge Media produces culturally relevant content for Black and urban audiences. Our coverage is raw, transparent, and objective, praised by community leaders, government officials, and residents. Support Converge Media today via Venmo, Cash App, or PayPal at Converge Media. All righty, we are back, and I just wanted to kind of pick up where I was leaving off here, Naomi, because I really like what you said there about, in terms of that culturally responsive approach, right? Making sure that, folks are taking care of the elders, taking care of the youth. That really is a part of this kind of a consortium of care that really resolves from such a community-centric and like culturally responsive approach. How do you foresee that kind of building off now? I know that a lot of it is allowing the youth to also see themselves as a part of the solution. Is that something that you think is also really valid here in this case?
I mean, I think in the case of these Asian American attacks, that's what's so complicated, is that the motivations are really varied. I mean, and I don't want to minimize or downplay the very real divisions that have existed for a really long time between the Asian American and African American communities. Those are real, and there's a lot of work that we're going to have to do to rebuild trust, to build healing paths between our communities, to understand our challenges, and quite honestly, to unpack a lot of the anti-Blackness that is taught to Asian American communities from generations. And we're certainly not alone in that. But I think both young people and people of all ages, in the Asian American community, have a lot of work to do to undo some of the things that we're taught. And I think that, in the process of doing that, we will build stronger connections and stronger ties that will make our community safer all around. And I think that's something that's often been missing. We just kind of pretend like there's this sort of, BIPOC coalition or solidarity, and that's actually not the case.
Well, how much of the new Seattle, and I call it a new Seattle because it's like the demographics here have changed so much, but I really recall, and I'm not trying to romanticize it. I know we always go over the top when we talk about Garfield, but you could have talked about Franklin as well, Cleveland. That when we were in high school, and me and you, we went to high school together.
Yeah,
it was like, it was a lot of diversity. I think that Garfield probably had a bigger Black population, but there was so much diversity there, in white, and in Asian, especially, in those two categories. And then some, you talk about so many Filipinos and everything else. Like, it was like all these different people was just a way of life. You know what I'm saying? And you walk across the graduation stage, you didn't even see it as like, oh, that's Japanese American and that's Filipino American and this is whatever. Those were just really good days that I remember. And, and clearly it's impacted me in the way that I've gone out into the world, because I've been able to embrace the world no matter, what color, what background or whatever. And a lot of that foundation started right there, in high school and even before high school, middle school and everything else. What do you think, like now, like the tolerance level is in the city as far as different peoples? A year ago, we covered the vandalism down there in the International District, where people went and broke out all the Jade Garden and everything else. What's happening here in our city when we talk about, especially Asian Americans and crimes against them?
Yeah, and again, like I think that's another part of the story too, is, I'm not, and I don't want to downplay this either. I talked about this a year ago, that the rhetoric around coronavirus being an Asian problem or a Chinese problem, it created a whole cascade of impacts to the Asian American community, where we're already considered perpetual foreigners. And on top of that, we couldn't cough in public without being seen as a, public health threat. And I'm a person who has asthma, and I was so afraid to be in public and coughing. And I was so afraid to be in public and wear a mask, because there was already such a widespread perception that, somehow this virus only affected Asian Americans, which made absolutely no sense. And then we saw that sort of play out both in attacks in the International District against Asian American businesses, to the impact to their livelihood and their business customer base, and then we saw that perpetuated over the past year by the president continuing to call it the Kung flu or the China virus. And those things have impacts. They have impacts in terms of how people are able to feel safe in their own communities, how they're able to, go out and do their shopping, do whatever they need to do in their lives. And so, I think that the climate is one of great wariness. I think people are very nervous, very concerned, not just about this sort of spate of attacks, but just this general climate of like, again, you don't really belong here. This is not really, your home, when of course it is. And, I was reminded of that last night watching the Golden Globes and seeing the film Minari being put in the foreign language category, even though it's a completely American movie, American director, set in, I can't remember where, but the Midwest. I mean, he doesn't get any more American than that, but still, because they spoke their dialogue in Korean, as millions of people do, then suddenly it's no longer an American movie.
Well, I think you're hitting some really fascinating points that really need more and more discussion and more collaboration amongst so many Americans. As we know, I mean, a lot of us call ourselves American, and we find ways of like hunkering into our own kind of culture, or, kind of with our people. But one of the things I definitely want to point out is, you know, I saw in Asian Weekly months ago when those attacks were kind of happening in Chinatown, there was some discussion around this anti-Blackness and how people are, you know, kind of raised in that. One of my good friends, you know, is Chinese American, and we talk about this often. And I think that these discussions are beginning to happen. I want to just ask you, what do you foresee in terms of the next steps to move a lot of that kind of collaboration forward so that it isn't something that is facadical or surface level, but that is actually getting to the root of the issue?
Yeah, I'm so glad you said that. I think that conversations like this are a huge part of it. I think being really specific and really careful and clear about what it is that we are trying to confront and trying to rectify, and not just lump everything into this really, really broad brush, I think is super critical to that. And I think we need to be having these conversations. We need to be having these public conversations with each other and across racial differences, and really start to be honest and open about the ways in which, you know, I'm speaking as part of the Asian American community, the ways in which we have perpetuated these unjust systems and this anti-Blackness that we're certainly not alone in, but we have to be accountable and responsible for. And, you know, to Mari's point, you know, going to Garfield was a hugely transformative experience for me and many other people. And sometimes I look and I wish that we could have more of that sort of cross-pollination of ideas and connections and people. I think we're a lot stronger when we do that, for sure.
You know, I really acknowledge you for the column that you wrote. And it's funny because in our pre-show, we always tweet out what's going to be happening, what we're talking about. And some of the early feedback was like, oh, okay, they're going to blame Whitey. It was like this real deal. It was like, oh, they're going to blame the white man. They're going to do this and that and everything else. And so, surprise. You know what I'm saying? But it's, you know, I mean, this is a real complex conversation. Mm-hmm. And, you know, I really appreciate you kind of putting it out there. And these discussions are important. And, you know, I really feel, I'll be honest with you, take a few seconds here. I really feel that, like, man, whatever years I grew up here in Seattle was real special. I had Colleen Echohawker on here not too long ago, and now Colleen's running for mayor. And you talk about even this divide now between like African American and Native American. I remember being a kid, man, we was at Daybreak Start. We went out to Nia Bay to help the Makah Nation, you know what I'm saying, defend their treaty rights to go get their well. Like, this was, as a kid, you know what I'm saying, growing up, all of these cultures and people were so much as one, you know what I'm saying? And it was like all of these, whatever celebration was a collective celebration. We going to the powwow. We're going Hey Fat Choi. We're celebrating Chinese New Year. You know what I'm saying? It was all like whatever. And it's just interesting. It seems like how much our city has changed over the decades to where all of these different ethnic groups was all, you know, that used to be a big thing. Go to the Filipino parade. Remember Seafair?
Yeah.
Yeah. You had a Black community parade. You definitely had to go to the Filipino parade. And you had to go to the one in International District.
That's right.
Like, we were together. And, you know, I mean, the good thing about that is that there was a time and place where all of these different cultures and communities were together. So it tells us that we could be together again.
Yeah.
I just don't know what's going on right now.
Yeah. I think we are getting more and more insulated and insular in our communities. And I think you've totally hit on it. And that's exactly how I grew up too. And I think, you know, the more we get back to that approach where we have some humility and have some understanding that we have a lot to learn from each other and we have a lot of room to grow, I think is really healthy.
Well, I just want to say that I think that there's room, you know, kind of what Base has been doing. I mean, there's room to bring a real panel on this, Naomi. And so we may be having to reach out to you because I think that, you know, I talk to one of my good friends, you know, Cynthia Brothers all the time over at CID, also Vanishing Seattle. And honestly, you know, again, kind of like what Omari's saying, we didn't know all of these differences. And I think that we have to start bringing those relationships to the forefront here when we talk about the real solutions. To move this forward and do it in a way that is genuinely in that same sense of solidarity that we all grew up in.
I think you can hit it like this, is that a decade ago, Massive Monkeys was just Squad.
Yeah.
That was crew.
Yeah.
Today, Massive Monkeys is Asian Dance Crew in the International District, Massive Monkeys. But like a decade ago, that was just Squad. Hey, that's the Monkeys. What's happening? You know what I'm saying? and we find ourselves in a city moving further apart. Before we let you go, Naomi, it is National Women's Month, and today is the first day of National Women's Month. And, you know, I don't necessarily have a question per se for you, but I did say, like, we'd bring this up. What does National Women's Month mean to you? And what do you want to see? What do you want to see highlighted, or what's going on? Or what do you have to share with us?
Well, this might be an unpopular opinion, but I'm not personally a fan of the designated months. I don't really abide by them much. I never have. When I was at Colors Northwest, it was a source of a lot of, tension from folks who were like, well, this is a such and such month. You have to do something on us this month. And I would say, we have to do something on African American history every single month. We have to do something Native communities every month, and you need to hold us accountable for that. And I feel the same way about Women's History Month. I'm glad that attention is focused, but I think that we need to hold ourselves accountable to ensuring that every single month of the year, if your content isn't at least half dedicated to issues related to women, you're doing it wrong. And if you, same thing with Black content, Native content, Asian content, we need to hold ourselves, because it gets us off the hook, right? If we say, oh, we only do Black history stuff in Black History Month, the shortest month of the year, all 28 days of it, then it's like, okay, we're cool the other 11 months of the year. We're good. We did that in February, so we don't have to do it anymore the rest of the year. And I don't agree with that. I think we need to hold ourselves accountable to carrying that banner all year round.
Well, let me tell you this, and I had all your solo me up here while I say this, is this entire morning update show is produced, directed, and co-hosted by women. So believe me, every single day here on the morning update show, it's National Women's Day every day on the morning update show. Can we get one here?
Yeah, I agree with you too, Naomi. I love that you said that. I think you're absolutely right. It can't be any more check mark boxes that we're just like, oh, yep, got that out the way, got this out the way. I think about the same terms in terms of the solidarity, because we have like Asian Island Pacific Month, right? And it's like, no, we need to be able to bring that unity in all the time, every chance we can. So I agree wholeheartedly there.
Yep.
I think that, the more I look back at it, it's like I almost grew up in Seattle in a golden age. Because all of these different cultures and things that we call out and specific or whatever, which is cool, man, that was just part of everyday life. And we were so entrenched in everybody's culture. You know what I'm saying? It's really, that's the Seattle. When I tell people about that, I was like, yeah, no, man, I grew up, you know what I'm saying? Going to this and going to powwows, or going down to the International District, going to Winglook Museum, or going to, and by the time you get grown, you have such an appreciation of all these different cultures. So, but Naomi, man, we're gonna cut you loose right here. I want to tell you thank you so much for joining us. Thank you so much for your insight. Thank you so much for being willing to make people uncomfortable and willing to have these discussions that are so necessary in our community.
Thank you so much. I'm a huge fan of the show, huge fan of you, and thank you for the opportunity. It's been
all right.
Thank you.
All right, Naomi.
Bye.
So that's a bulldog right there too.
Hey, you know what I mean? And she's just bringing the truth, man. I just love that. And sometimes it's hard for us to look at ourselves and figure out, you know what, there's a piece that even I play into this, and how do I check that? You know what I mean? And I love that, man. Just keeping it genuine.
Yeah, man. I really, really miss that old Seattle. And I think that sooner or later we have to balance the sheets. You know, they always talk about rebalancing the budget down there at City Hall, but we need to really rebalance who we are and who we want to be as a city. We were a city that used to have Kids Day. It was a holiday just for kids back in the day.
I think that what you're saying too is it's on us, right? I mean, when we all take that in, when we all say, you know what, we see ourselves as a part of the solution to break down these barriers that have been built up over however many years, right? That it's on all of us. And I always encourage people to see themselves as a part of the solution. No, that's absolutely right.
Yeah. We're going to take a short break right now. When we come back, this was a clip that we had meant to play last week, but it was a lot going on. But we're going to tell you the story of Ella Baker. You're watching the Morning Update Show.
I did it for the city. I did it for the love. I did it for the people. I did it for us.
was. Back on this rap ish, I ain't even broke a sweat, homie, this practice. Pondering my next move, staring at my track list, hope I ain't miss my window. Praying like a Baptist, Seattle's own. Tired of this Game of Thrones. They made a list of the best rappers, and guess who wasn't on? While the disrespect continues, I'm steady packing these venues.
Converge Media produces culturally relevant content for Black and urban audiences. Our coverage is raw, transparent, and objective, praised by community leaders, government officials, and residents. Support Converge Media today via Venmo, Cash App, or PayPal at Converge Media.
All right, welcome back to the morning. That one always just stops like that, catching us. Welcome back to the morning update show. Now you heard Naomi say it. She's like, "Hey man, things shouldn't really be like categorized into just one month, Black History Month, National Women's Month." So that being the case, I don't feel bad at all. We meant to play this last month, but hey, every day is Black History.
What do two of the most important civil rights organizations have in common? Meet Ella Baker, the brilliant Black woman whose ideas and careful grassroots organizing helped give birth to Dr. King's Southern Christian Leadership Conference and to the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee. For this reason, Ella Baker is reverentially known as the mother of the Civil Rights Movement.
Born in Virginia in 1903, Ella Baker was educated at Shaw University before moving to New York City in 1927. By 1930, she'd started organizing.
Ella Baker joined the NAACP in 1940 and helped young leaders find their voice and their leadership capacity. And one of those people was Rosa Parks, someone we all know. Ella Baker was also recruited by Martin Luther King to help run the Southern Christian Leadership Conference, which was helping to build the civil rights movement.
Then in 1960, a group of Black college students were denied service at Woolworth's segregated lunch counter in Greensboro, North Carolina. In an act of nonviolent protest, the students refused to leave, inspiring similar sit-ins across the South.
Ella Baker left SCLC to help a group of young people form the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee.
I remember Miss Baker saying, many of you are from some of the quote-unquote best schools in the country, so when you go into rural areas, don't go in there thinking you're going to lead the people. Find out what the people want.
When you heard Ella Baker speak, you were ready to get out there. She really wanted us to stand up and speak out. And she gave you the energy to push. You can lead, you can be somebody, you can do something.
More interested in effecting change than public acclaim or financial reward, Baker inspired a generation of young Americans to risk their lives to fight racism, sexism, and white supremacy. Simply put, the mother of the civil rights movement had many children, and we are her heirs.
Wow. And we are her heirs. Absolutely. And one of the things that I want to say is that this is why, for me, so much of this is about what we were just talking about with Naomi. When we see ourselves as a part of the solution, it's on all of us. It's not hitting one race, one culture, one class. It's on all of us who understand this. And as one of my mentors says, those who are of like mind, when we come together to showcase that collective voice, that collectivism, as Miss Ella Baker was ushering in there with SCLC, with SNCC, with the NAACP, taking those positions and being very strategic about injecting that energy into the next generation so they can see themselves as leaders leaders, as movers, listening to what the people want, ushering those demands in. We find ourselves in this same day and age right now, continuing the work that Miss Ella Baker started. Oh, and to be honest, that just gave me chills because so many of the young leaders say it to me like, oh, well, we see you out there. And I'm like, hey, you see yourselves out there. You guys are also a part of the solution. That's what it's about, man. It's on all of us.
No, that's important. You know, like you say, you see yourself out there. Man, these are dope.
Yeah.
You know, it's always good. We always like to inform and educate our audience. Few things here. Tomorrow, these motion graphics I spent a lot of time working on here. Tomorrow, Hamdi Mohammed running for Port of Seattle Commissioner, position number 3. Hamdi Mohammed will be here. And then also tonight, though, 6:15 p.m. Coronavirus Update Show with me and producer Nikki Barron. And we're going to update everybody on the numbers. Any last words before we get out of here, Trey?
Oh man, you know what? As I just want to, I'm excited for my girl Hamdi to be here tomorrow. I mean, honestly, this is what we're talking about, and to end on such a great positive message with Miss Ella Baker's legacy is, again, you see folks like Hamdi, we see Naomi. I mean, we see so many amazing people that are affecting change. We saw Pamela last week. I mean, this is what it's about. It's about taking in that energy that you have and helping it to usher it in to the larger community. So I'm excited. I really am. Just, man, see yourselves as a part of the solution, as we've been saying, man. Do something.
I like that. Get up, get out, and get something. All right, we're going to get out of here for today. But as usual, I want to remind you to go forward in your purpose and go forward in humanity. Until tomorrow at 11 a.m.
Peace.
Lift every voice and sing till earth in heaven ring with the harmonies of liberty. Let our rejoicing rise as the listening skies. Let it resound loud as the rolling sea. Sing a song full of the faith that the dark past has taught us. Sing a song full of the hope that the present has brought us. Facing the rising sun of a new day.